Welcome everyone, bienvenue tout le monde. My name is Jessica Ferne. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Director of Global Health Impact here at CANWACH, the Canadian Partnership for Women and Children's Health. We have many of our members on the call with us today, but for those of you that aren't members of CANWACH, welcome as well. CANWACH as a partnership is a coalition like our colleagues here at the Ontario Council of International Cooperation and other members of the Intercouncil Network. And we represent organizations of diverse sizes, all of whom work at that nexus of global health, human rights, gender equality. That of course includes small and medium-sized organizations. So it's really important for us to be engaging actively in the series of conversations that are happening right now around SMO engagement. We are very grateful to have many of you on the call with us today, including some of our colleagues from Global Affairs Canada, who we know are here in listening mode, of course, but we invite them to contribute any insights or information that might be relevant to those on this call. Alors, bienvenue aux collègues d'Affaires mondiales Canada. Nous sommes contents que vous soyez parmi nous aujourd'hui. Vous êtes bienvenus à partager avec les partenaires des informations que vous pensez seront utiles à n'importe quel moment durant l'appel, et nous espérons que vous trouverez ces échanges utiles vous-même. So the majority of the presentations today will be taking place in English. I believe most of the presenters are speaking English. However, we encourage, as always, folks to participate in the language of their choice. Aux participants et participantes, nous vous invitons à contribuer dans la langue de votre choix, soit à haute voix ou en écrivant vos questions et commentaires dans le fenêtre du clavardage. Si vous nous le demandez, nous pouvons aussi traduire au besoin. Et bien sûr, nous allons partager un compte rendu dans les deux langues suite à l'appel avec tout le monde. So this is a conversation we've been wanting to have for a long time, but of course, with the current context, we are pivoting slightly to open up this conversation to the broader lessons learned on SMO operational practices, touching on scaling up, resource sharing, capacity building opportunities, and much more. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Antu Hossain, to facilitate and tell you a little bit more about the agenda today. Antu, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and welcome everybody. It's really lovely to have you all here on this virtual space with us. So as Jessica mentioned, my name is Antu Hossain. I'm the Global Health Impact Officer here. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I call Toronto home. It's located on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit. I feel very lucky to be a settler in this country, and I'm generally very excited that we all understand our privilege that we bring to the international development space and how we can further recognize and deconstruct a lot of the settler colonial debates that we have around here with our efforts globally. So we at CANWACH, alongside our partners, are of course very excited to host this conversation, and we do find this to be a jumping point, a first date of sorts. We hope that it will open up room for further conversations. Our biggest hope is that you take away a connection with somebody today, that you take away one maybe nugget of information that you didn't know before. And we have multiple ways that we would like to follow up with you through outcome documents that I will go on into in the housekeeping items. So before this webinar, we did send out a survey to registered participants just to engage on what you were interested in, and we heard various types of feedback. And so from everything from managing different types of partnerships to programmatic delivery to resource sharing and capacity strengthening. So you'll hear a bit of everything, but we do encourage you to, of course, know that we can't touch on everything. So please do follow up with others as you feel fit after this exchange. The discussion is primarily in English, but please feel free to ask your questions and discuss in the language of your preference. The presentation is being recorded as of right now. The presentation will only be recorded and not the discussion, and we will be sure to share the presentation link later on. We warmly welcome questions anytime throughout the exchange, and we are going to try something new, so bear with us as we do that today. But one thing I'd like to note is that we would like to end this webinar with an outcome document with some key highlights that we heard, and specifically noting some resources that you all may mention throughout this call. And in order to gain consent of whether you would like your contact information shared as part of this document to facilitate connecting with one another, my colleague Caitlin will be entering in the Zoom chat box a link to a document where you can put in your details, and this will help us know if we can share your information widely for others to connect with you. So feel free. And of course, we will have breakout rooms and the latter half of the webinar. For today's agenda, we have our welcome and opening remarks. We will talk very briefly around how to participate in Sli.do, which is going to be primarily the platform that we use to poll you throughout the event, as well as to collect questions. So we will try to move away from the Zoom chat box with that. Then we will follow with speaker presentations. So we've got an amazing lineup. I'm very excited. And then we will, after the speakers, we will come together as a group and have a Q&A for a brief amount of time before we break apart into 3 separate breakout rooms where you'll be able to open up, share your experiences a little bit more, and engage with the speakers and the content more deeply. And then we will conclude and wrap up, hopefully by 1:30. So that's our aim today. One of the cool ways that we want to try something out new today is to engage with Sli.do. Sli.do, as you can see, there are multiple ways to log into Sli.do. If you are on your computer, the easiest way is to simply click the link that my colleague Caitlin has entered in the Zoom chat box. It's right there. And if you click it, then you are entered live into the chat room right away. If you are, however, option number 2, wanting to use your mobile phone, it's very neat, actually. You open up your phone, you open up your camera application, just your camera, make sure it's not in selfie mode, and then you simply take your camera and hover it over the QR code that you have right there, and it should prompt you to open up Sli.do on your phone, and you will enter that way as well. Once again, if you just want to try out the link that we have there in the chat box, that will direct you right away on the computer. So if you have any questions, of course, around Sli.do, feel free to just put them in the chat box. But again, we are hoping that this is going to be where you can put in your questions throughout the entire period of this webinar. What's really exciting is that when you put in your question, others can like the question, bump up the question so that we know that multiple people want to hear of the same thing. And so if we're all kind of in it and in Sli.do, of course, let's give it a go. So we've got a few folks in Montreal, Winnipeg, my dining room area, love it. I am currently in my bedroom. Montreal, 82 Henderson Highway. Okay, my baby's bedroom. Yeah, this is a very real reality for many of us, right? Andrea, I can see you. Kudos to all the working parents who are pulling multiple shifts during this really difficult time. Awesome. So now that a lot of us feel hopefully more engaged around Sli.do, this is a simple poll, and feel free to pop in your answers. We love them all. But hoping that you see that the live Q&A portion around Sli.do is open at any time for you to ask questions, whether anonymously or using your name. And please feel free to use that feature throughout. So now that we've trained you on a little bit of a new digital tool, hopefully already a takeaway from this webinar, I am going to introduce our lovely speakers. So I'm thrilled to introduce our fantastic co-hosts of this exchange. Today we have Tara Ward, who is the Program Manager for the Maternal and Newborn Child Health Program at Horizons of Friendship. Followed by Tara, we will have Kristen Douglas, the Executive Director of Ethiopiaid Canada. Following Kristen, we have Isabel Kim, the Director of Community and Learning at the Ontario Council for International Cooperation. And she will be joined by her colleagues Christina Macisaac, the Director of Innovation for the Fund for Innovation and Transformation, also known as FIT, as well as Andréane Martel, the National Program Director for the Spur Change Program. Both initiatives are part of the Intercouncil Network. We are very, very thrilled to have this incredible lineup, and I turn it over to you, Tara, to take us away.
As Antu said, my name is Tara Ward, and I'm the Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health Program Manager with Horizons of Friendship, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm coming to you or speaking to you today not only from my dining room area, but from Edmonton, which is located on what is known as Treaty 6 territory, and the traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Saulteaux, Nisitapi, Métis, and Nakota Sioux peoples. And I think it was mentioned earlier that the presentation today has been in planning and in motion for a few months now, and so it's been slightly adjusted, and I hope I can speak to some of how Horizons is responding to the current reality, but also hoping to learn as much from all of you as well, because this is live and we're all going through it together. And I thought I would start by giving a brief history of who Horizons is and how we approach our work. Horizons was founded in 1973 by 3 Northumberland residents who traveled to Honduras and worked there for a year. And so although I'm based in Edmonton, Horizons is actually based in Cobourg, Ontario, and we often get the question as to why. Well, that's why. It was founded by 3 residents of Cobourg and Port Hope. And like all organizations, we've grown and evolved and changed over the years. And we started in 1973 being really focused on Honduras and working through child sponsorship, and then over the decades have adapted and changed. In the 1980s, that's when we really became focused on community development and bearing witness and supporting our partners through the civil wars and the human rights violations in the region. In the 1990s, that's when we really solidified our partnership model, where we really focus on strengthening our partners' capacities through our relationship. So it's not just about funding the project and the program, but it's about investing in the organization. So whether that's through investing in accounting systems, strategic planning, gender equality training, and capacity building, and so forth. And then in the aughts and this current decade, we really moved from just focusing on community development to regional learning networks and exchanges. And really focused on building connections between projects working on violence against women, HIV and AIDS, food sovereignty, and so forth. And then in 2015, we got the good news that we've been approved for the Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health Program. And in 2016, that was launched, and we can move to the next slide. And just to put the program in context, Horizons is a regionally focused organization in Central America and Mexico, and our previous kind of annual budget was around 1 million, 1.5 million. And then suddenly in 2016, we were awarded a program of 13.2 million over 4 years. And now it's going to be 5 years because we're in a 1-year no cost extension. We're implementing that partner program with our local Guatemalan partner, País de Occidente, which is the Association for Health, Promotion, Research, and Education in the Western Highlands of Guatemala. And that's a partner we'd had for about 8 years before putting forward the proposal. The program is very much focused on the outcomes that were included in that call. So improving service use, improving maternal, newborn, and child healthcare service delivery. And then we have a strong public engagement component focused on understanding between Canada and Guatemala. And the only 2 other pieces I really want to highlight is we've really also focused in the program on strengthening the formal health system as well as the informal health system. So what that means is we're working with medical professionals in the province of Totonicapán on culturally relevant healthcare, as well as investing in equipment and supplies and medicines. And on the other side, we're also working with the network of about 900 traditional Indigenous midwives, or comadronas, who are the frontline workers of maternal health care in Totonicapán and attend the vast majority of births. So we're providing them with training, capacity building, equipment, and helping to try and build the relationship between those 2 health systems. And so we can move on to the next slide. So as I said, this is going to be a mixture of what we're confronting now and what we've learned through the process. And I think one of the biggest challenges we had right off the bat, and it's a heads up for organizations that have either already applied for a call or are thinking of applying for a call with any kind of large funder, but we had about a 9-month delay from the time of receiving our approved programming. So 2015, it was in July, I believe. And then our contribution agreement was signed in March, so about 9 months, as well as a month or so before we got the funding. So you just really need to plan for that and have that kind of planned in to your contingencies as an organization. Another key challenge that we faced and continue to face is that we now have this very large and very successful maternal health program being implemented in Guatemala, but we're a regional organization. And so when we made that shift, that was the same time that the government of Canada was shifting how it was funding organizations, and we used to be funded through the partnership branch. And so we would oversee work with about 17 partners with about 30 projects in a year on a very small scale. And now most of our resources are focused on a single program. And so the organization has really struggled with how to manage that. And on the fundraising side, I would say maternal, newborn, and child healthcare is very concrete and understandable to Canadian audiences. And so often we need to fundraise the match, but not to overly focus on the Guatemala program when we still have needs in other areas of the region and other areas of our work. Another key challenge and learning that we've had that is also a test currently in the current reality is building new relationships and partners with external agencies or institutional actors. We had envisioned the work with the local health authority, with the midwives or the comadronas, with the traditional Indigenous leaders, the community health commissions, but I don't think we fully understood, particularly with the local health authority, how much work of just building the trust and the relationship was going to take, and also navigating an entire other level of bureaucracy has been something that's taken a lot of resources, and that's just something to think about. Even if they're not new relationships but ongoing ones, it can take some time. And then obviously the biggest challenge we're facing right now, which we're all facing, but our reality is we're trying to end a program. We're in a 1-year no-cost extension where we very tightly planned activities up until and reporting up until September, because that's when really our funding runs out for salaries based on our planning. And now we're suddenly confronting a reality where in Guatemala, no public activities can take place. The pandemic hasn't fully hit there, but things are on lockdown currently. We continue to work with our partners. We're trying to find ways to adapt to have our public health educators call people in their homes rather than visit them and things like that. So we're currently working on those plans. And now I think I'll switch to the lessons learned, because I think this builds on how we're confronting the current reality. And a key part of that is our relationship with our local partner. And it's based on Horizon's partnership model. And so we had a fairly strong relationship with País de Occidente before starting the program. And we'd worked with them for about 8 years. But I think through the program that's been stretched and challenged, there's large amounts of work needing to be done, short timelines, lots of pressure. So really keeping those lines of communication open. We increased the number of field trips we're taking to the region. Now we're working much more on Skype quite regularly. So making sure you have those lines of communication in that respect, but also we have very clear defined roles and decision-making protocols that have helped guide us through those more complicated times, even like now. I would say another key part of our learnings is investing in the monitoring and evaluation systems and the staffing for that from the outset. We had budgeted for that, but Horizons isn't a health-based organization. And so, and even though PA's is, we didn't realize how much of an upgrade they would need to their database system, how much we couldn't rely on the government data and so forth. So just being prepared for that piece, if you haven't done a program like this before. Another learning for us in terms of working with all of the stakeholders is the annual planning that we undertook. And the first year we didn't do it, but the second year we did, and we've had some great success with that, and we've continued that through year 4. We worked with the Center for Intercultural Learning, and they really were able to bring an external perspective, and so that's through Global Affairs Canada as well, and came down to Guatemala, facilitated the workshop in Spanish, and we were able to bring together all of the different stakeholders. And that's been really key even now. We didn't do that this year because it's just a short extension, but it's been very key to our success and our relationship building. And then finally, I think just recognizing, and I think all small to medium-sized organizations know this, and people who work in our field do, but know that you'll need to be flexible and that you will probably end up adapting your program, and that's not a mistake and that's not a failure. That's just a reaction and a reality and a learning. And in order to do that, and especially now, building a strong relationship with your project officer at GAC and GAC as a whole. We've had about 3, I think maybe 4 project officers through the life of this program. We've worked hard to build the relationship with all of them. And particularly right now, I'm in almost daily contact with our project officer. And it's been really helpful to just ask questions, to know that we're in this together, and to be able to adapt and adjust the program throughout the life of it, but particularly now during the crisis. And with that, I think I'll pass it over to Kristen.
Thanks so much, Tara. I can already see a lot of similarities in challenges that we've had, and it's great to hear that we're not alone. My name is Kristen. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and today I'm working virtually from Ottawa. This is where I call home, and it is located on the traditional lands of the Algonquin. I'm the Executive Director of Ethiopiaid Canada. We have been around for 10 years, but I've only been around for about 1.5 years at Ethiopiaid Canada. So a little bit about our work. Ethiopiaid Canada partners with local organizations in Ethiopia. We partner with organizations that have a special focus on women's empowerment, fistula surgeries, maternal health, and inclusive education. As you can see, we work all over Ethiopia, except for the south, I guess you could say. So our work it can be quite varied. So although we work within those pillars, there is a lot in between that we focus on as well. We are a staff of 2 people, so we don't have a monitoring and evaluations team. I go twice a year to do the monitoring and evaluation of the projects. So, you know, our resources are already very, very thin. So 2 years ago, in 2017, we applied for funding from GAC. Last year, actually a year ago, we found out on April Fool's, actually, in 2019, that we were approved for a 4-year project. And so it's 1.6 million over 4 years. So we are launching that now. I can honestly say that getting funded for this project is super exciting, but it also means a lot of growing pains and navigating through a lot of unknowns. So I think Tara touched upon this as well, but you know, one of the challenges is we applied in 2017. We're just starting the project now. Inflation is astronomical in Ethiopia, so the cost of things have gone up. The amount that we have has not gone up, so we have to work within the 1.6 million regardless. So we've had to cut a few things in our project, which is always very tough because I think they're all necessary with the project. We're working in 2 areas, Harar and Afar. So one is not so rural, the other one is a very rural area, and it's a pastoralist nomadic population. So the needs are very, very different and very unique. The overall goal of the project is enhanced well-being of marginalized women and girls in those areas. And the plan for that is to increase utilization of sexual and reproductive health rights services, and of course, increasing economic decision-making for women and youth in those areas. So yeah, it's been a learning experience, even though it is a small amount compared to many other projects. It still requires the same level of attention and detail, and we still only have 2 staff. So we had to budget into the project a project manager, but you know, with it being our first GAC-funded project, we didn't really know how much time to budget for. So when we were approved for the funding, of course, we were excited, but there was a lot of questions that I had. So are we prepared for GAC funding? Do we have the capacity? What do we need to put in place to be successful? What about our other fundraising? And we only have 2 staff, so who's going to do all the work? So are we prepared? I think that we didn't fully understand what it entailed, but now we do. So we're getting prepared, and it's been like I said, a learning experience. As for capacity, with only 2 staff and a small, office, we don't have a lot of resources. So we chose partners, which I would recommend if you're starting out as well, to choose partners locally in your project country that have the capacity to do monitoring and evaluation, that have the capacity for results-based management, and that have maybe had this amount of funding before. Without our partners, I don't know where we would be. We're so lucky to have such amazing partners. So I think that's definitely something that should be in place. Another thing that I found super helpful, there was 21 other recipients of this funding window, and when we first all found out that we were approved, we had a call. I think it was through Spur Change actually, and we all connected with each other, and we created a database of contacts so we can reach out and kind of touch base with each other, which has been super helpful, because I can literally call up, World Accord and say, where are you guys on, have you done your PIP yet? Have you done your baseline? And kind of find out where people are at and what they're doing, and figure out if we're on the same page and how we can share resources. This also leads into knowing when to ask for help. I'm not going to lie, when I first read the contribution agreement, which I'm sure many of you have read maybe several contribution agreements, I said to myself, project implementation plan, a gender analysis, a baseline survey, I have no idea. I've never done that before. No one on my board has done that before. Our other staff member has not done this before. So where do we begin is a great question. So I had to ask myself and kind of do a little reality check, do I have the knowledge and skill set to complete the task at hand? How much is it going to cost in staff time for me to learn those things? And when should I hire a consultant? So I think knowing when to ask for help is very, very important. I also think it's important to have a great relationship with your project officer at GAC. Our project officer has been amazing. And it's kind of like we've been learning together how to navigate through this, because we are a smaller project and in 2 different regions. So it's been great. I also decided to hire a consultant to help with our project implementation plan in Ethiopia, and thank goodness I did, because I think we are now set up for success. The only issue now is, of course, trying to do a baseline and gender analysis in the midst of a pandemic. So we're just trying to figure out what to do with that situation, but I think that we are able to get it done locally in Ethiopia and hire locally. It's just a matter of whether people can travel locally in Ethiopia. So yeah, I guess when it comes to asking for help, knowing how much time to spend on something, and making sure that you've reached out to other SMOs. Like the only reason that I found a consultant in the first place was by reaching out to other SMOs and figuring out who they've used, who they recommend, and everyone seems to know somebody that can help. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and it's okay to not know what you're doing. And it can be very daunting to get your first GAC funded project. So yeah, I'm very thankful, but I have a lot of great people around me, so that's awesome. Next slide, please. Another thing that came to mind when we first got funded was, do we have good governance? So do we have the right people on the board? Do they understand the project? Are they doers? How are they contributing? Do we have committees to support me? So as you know, I've mentioned that we only have 2 staff and very limited time and resources. So can I rely on the board to help with the project? And at first, the answer was no. We didn't have any committees on our board when we first got funded, but now we have a finance committee. We're starting up a project committee, and we had to realize that we are definitely going to be audited in the next 4 years, and we need to make sure that we have the proper financial controls in place so that we are set up for success and don't have any unexpected challenges along the way. So I would make sure that you have the right people on the board. We're also recruiting for people that have M&E expertise, international development expertise, because at the end of the day, it can't just be my eyes on the project, and we have a project manager, but she's only 1 day a week, so we need all the help that we can get. So, and making sure that your board is following proper board protocols and everything is very important. So yeah, so good governance is key to success of the project. Another thing that comes to mind is, you have gap funding, but you have all this other revenue that you need to maintain. So, we had a small revenue, only about 450,000 before gap funding. So this is, increased our revenue substantially, but it is for 4 years. So let's say we don't get more gap funding for some reason. And after that 4 years, we need to make sure that everything is not left to the wayside. So I would say right now, if you're at the beginning of your project, make sure that you have enough volunteers to help with stewardship. You can even do, you can have remote volunteers, thank God for Zoom. Make sure that you are using all the resources you can, like apply for Canada summer jobs, use your local colleges, universities to get interns whenever possible. And just make sure that it's not just you that is left with all of the, the other fundraising revenue. So, for us, we need to increase our revenue substantially in the next 3 years while working on this project. So it's going to be a challenge. So I think, communicating with your donors about the GAC project is important as well. And making sure that you don't lose sight of your other strategies and that you keep your fundraising diversified. That leads me into fundraising during COVID-19. Obviously, this is a very uncertain time for a lot of us. We are dropping a direct mail piece next week, and this is usually our most successful direct mail piece is our spring mailer, and we're very nervous. This time around, we don't know what to expect. But what I can say is that, you have to use it, at least to your advantage, some of these fundraising resources. So we are talking about COVID-19 and all of our fundraising. We've added an insert in our direct mail piece. I'd be happy to share that insert with anyone who's interested. We're being consistent in the messaging, with all the calls from Global Affairs. It's been amazing to see like what's going on and how we can communicate with our donors. We've talked to our local partners. We've been sharing their needs with our donors so that our donors understand that, we are lucky here in Canada. We have a great healthcare system, but a lot of our project countries don't. And if it spreads the way that it's spreading here, I really fear for what's going to happen. So I think being transparent with your donors is important, and explaining to your donors that we need to fundraise more than ever during a time like this, and we need to come together. I mean, we've seen amazing examples in our communities of coming together during this time. So, include your donors on that journey as well. And yeah, I think it's just important as well to keep them in the know that, there might be longer processing times in their donations. They may not get their tax receipt right away, and there may be a slight delay in things because we're not working in the office. A lot of people have been asking me, what are our partners doing to respond to COVID-19? And that's a great question. In Ethiopia, there are 29 cases, I think, as of this morning, most from travelers, and most of the rural areas have not seen any cases, but there's also no testing. There's also hardly any social distancing in these areas. So our partners, when I asked them what they're doing, a few of them kind of said, well, we're actually dealing with cholera, dengue fever, polio still. We have so many things that we are dealing with that we haven't really had a chance to talk about COVID-19. But nonetheless, they have to prepare for it. So in the rural area in Afar that I was referring to earlier with the nomadic population, they have created a regional task force steering committee to guide their response. They're giving messages via posters, FM radio broadcasts. They're having discussions at the mosque, hopefully not attending the mosque altogether. They're making sure that any health workers that are communicating with households are giving those messages directly to households. And those messages are about, you know, changing local practices as far as sanitation goes. You know, many cultures, they have very warm greetings and they sit together and they eat together. So some of those things need to change. So their main focus right now is they need funding and to do training and awareness on prevention and sanitary practices. So we're kind of trying to see what we can do to rework the GAC budget to make sure that they have the funding to do that. But yeah, so that's kind of some of our challenges in a nutshell, and kind of how we're dealing with the current situation. Hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, we're very new to this, so we're really going through a lot of growing pains and learning. So it's great to know that other people are experiencing the same thing, and that we can all work together to make sure that our projects are successful. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Isabelle Kim.
Like Antu, j'habite dans la région de Toronto, alors je ne vais pas répéter le land acknowledgement, mais juste pour dire que je suis issue d'une famille avec un père de la Corée du Nord et puis une mère québécoise, donc je vais pouvoir répondre aux questions en français. I'll switch back to English just to share a little mini add-on to Antu's land acknowledgement. I'm based in Toronto. I'm the Director of Community Learning at the Ontario Council for International Cooperation. And I'm joined here today, very lucky, with my two colleagues. OCIC is part of the Internet Council network. We are a member, and so we are connected with some of those inter-council network initiatives like Spur Change and the Fund for Innovation and Transformation. And our presentation today will be focusing on, we've heard a lot about the challenges that SMOs have in terms of scaling in general. And Andrea, Christina, and myself will split the time remaining here for sharing some of the resources across all of our different initiatives. So here's some SMOs growth stories from a survey that Spur Change conducted in the fall of 2019. And these stories might resonate, and we've heard from Tara and Kristen a lot of these similar ideas. And just on the proof of concept activity, Christina will be able to explore that a little bit, as FIT really helps SMOs do just that, address that second bullet concern about providing that opportunity for experimenting and testing out proof of concept activities. And just on the last point around partnerships, just a quick mention to say that GAC has these demystifying partnerships workshops, and apparently they are going to be creating a recording or some sort of audiovisual piece that will be shared shortly. And there's also in the outcomes document I'll share that Antu will share, I'll include something around the International Partnership Brokerage Association. They have great resources on not just how to partner with GAC, that's not their focus, but they were founded shortly after the formation of the United Nations. They're a London-based organization to support our sector in terms of developing capacity for partnershiping. So SDG number 17. One thing I'm not hearing is, I've never heard, you know, at OCIC where we've got over 100 members across Ontario, and I've worked myself in small, medium, and large organizations in the sector and other sectors. And what I'm not hearing is ever a small organization saying we had the opportunity to go big and we said no, or a bigger organization saying, actually, we want to descale. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there in the sense that maybe just sometimes question that bigger is not always better. You know, smaller organizations might face these challenges here, also drawn from the Spur Change Needs Assessment conducted last fall. So yes, there is less staff time, but having more doesn't always necessarily make an organization nimble or adaptable. So I've seen kind of both benefits of being small, being able to pivot more quickly, but also benefits of being larger in having a lot more established, you know, an entire HR department, an entire department that deals with MENL type issues. So just wanted to put that out there. Of course, there is less financial stability, of course, and limited resources, as Kristen's pointed out, are real challenges for SMOs. As you know, I don't need to tell you. Brian Tomlinson has a great report that was put out, commissioned by the Inter-Council Network in 2014, in which he shared that large organizations receive 60% at the time of CEDA defunding, medium organizations about 17%, and small organizations 1.8%. So clearly, while SMOs make up a large number of international development actors across Canada, they receive a much smaller proportion of government funding. There's a need to build internal capacity, like Kristen mentioned, around MENL, RBM, etc. And both my colleagues referred to the importance of partnerships and working with our boards, as Kristen just mentioned. Next. I'm going to turn it, so I mentioned earlier that there was a recognized issue of SMOs receiving a small proportion of government funding. And so in 2017, Global Affairs Canada announced a $100 million fund for SMOs over 5 years. And this was going to be split up into a development impact fund, of which some of you are recipients of, the Fund for Innovation and Transformation, FIT, which Christina will speak about just now, and also a fund for capacity building, a national Spur change program to provide capacity building and learning opportunities to SMOs. And some of those particular activities are delivered regionally, and OCIC is one of those councils that will be delivering those activities, as well as our own capacity building opportunities regionally. Whereas the Fund for Innovation and Transformation is a bit more of a national fund, which Christina will get into just in just right now. I think I'm passing it over to you, Christina.
My name's Christina Macisaac, the Director of Innovation for the FIT program, and I prefer pronouns she and her. And before starting, did want to acknowledge that the FIT program at MCIC meets on Treaty 1 territory, and the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. And it is a pleasure to be here from a very stormy Winnipeg. So I did want to speak to the program a little bit, given the nature of, and the groups that are on the call. So FIT, or the Fund for Innovation and Transformation, does provide funding for Canadian SMOs who are looking to test their innovative solutions in partnership with local organizations in the Global South. And the solutions that they're testing should directly or indirectly aim to advance gender equality and empower women and girls. FIT's aligned with the FIAP and also guided by the Whistler Principles. And FIAP, of course, provides some context on Canada's commitment to advancing development innovation and can serve as a reference for building your testing frameworks. And Whistler Principles includes more information about sort of inclusive and locally driven approaches to innovation. And all of this information policies can be found via our website or, of course, on Global Affairs Canada. So FIT doesn't support regular development programs or projects that do implementation. It's designed instead to support SMOs that are ready to test ideas and solutions and then share their learnings to build the capacity of Canadian SMOs and achieve greater impact globally. So FIT also aims to create a safe space for SMOs to test, take risks, and fail and adapt. And throughout the testing period, FIT will be providing mentoring to the funded SMOs. And in addition, we'll be creating sort of collective learning and knowledge sharing for the SMOs in community learning spaces. We'll be sharing those learnings and knowledge publicly through stories and communications on our website and any other knowledge sharing platforms we develop. And basically, organizations can apply for funding up to $250,000 for testing periods between 6 and 15 months. So they're meant to be short-term initiatives. Over the course of the program, we aim to support between 50 and 70 initiatives. FIT does want to be funding projects or organizations who are really at the proof of concept or the testing phase. And so in the next 2 slides, we've kind of broken them up into 2 for purposes of this webinar, but just wanted to kind of demonstrate where we were at with our fund and where we weren't at. And basically we support them at at number 3, at the proof of concept. You know, after an idea has been developed and researched, it's important to be able to assess sort of the viability in real world context of your idea or solution you're proposing. So this is where we are. Maybe next slide. Sorry, it's a little hard when it's on 2 slides. The testing allows SMOs to then use evidence to understand what is or isn't working with their idea, and then maybe adapt, try again so they can repeat it, and help you transition to scale. So whilst FIT doesn't support organizations at the transitioning to scale or scaling, we are hoping to fund organizations that are right before that, and it may, you know, they'll have perhaps some results that push them into this next space. So just finally, since our launch of the program last year, we've been slowly adding resources to our website. We have recently launched a learning webinar and tool on testing frameworks. That was put out in December, and that's available to anyone free of charge who want to listen or download it. We also will be launching a few new resources on innovation, hopefully in the coming weeks. I've listed them here as Fishbone and Stakeholder Analyses. You know, very briefly, the fishbone diagram and webinar are resources to help identify root causes of the problems you're trying to address with your innovation, and just to help ensure that the correct causes to problems are really being targeted. The resource also wants to teach you about analyzing unexpected results of your innovation testing, and maybe projecting future impacts of an innovation. The stakeholder piece will help you identify relevant parties in the innovation planning and testing and evaluation, just to properly frame your testing and properly evaluate the success of the innovation at achieving its objectives, especially as it relates to the various stakeholders that you would involve. We're also planning on developing other resources as it relates to gender and innovation. And I'd invite you to sign up to our website, but also stay connected with the Spur Change program and anything among the ICN network, because they cross-promote our resources and program as well. And before I hand off, I did want to acknowledge that one of my colleagues is on the call today. Rebecca Chin is our program officer for technical and innovation, and she has played a key role in helping to develop some of these resources. So if she'll be in one of the chat rooms today, so if someone did have questions on the resources, she'll be able to answer some specifics much better than I could. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to Andréane.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. D'abord, je veux vous dire que je souhaite que vous, vos familles, vos collègues et vos partenaires dans les pays où vous travaillez sont en sécurité. J'espère qu'ils sont en sécurité, qu'ils sont en santé. C'est une période difficile pour tout le monde. Donc, c'est mon souhait avant de commencer. So my name is Andréane Martel. I'm the director of the Spur Change program. I live in Montreal, so I'm located on the traditional lands of the CANWACH nation. We are Spur, most of us at the Spur team are a virtual team, so we have colleagues located in different provinces in Edmonton and in Quebec mainly. So I want to thank my predecessors, all those who talked before me. It was super enlightening, the experience that you've been experiencing, what you've been experiencing. And I want to thank CANWACH as well and all of you for participating, because we are inviting you to a lot of different calls this week, with the sector call, with the town call this morning, and another call tomorrow that I will talk about a little bit later. So thank you for attending this specific call. I think it's a very important discussion. So Spur Change is a capacity building and knowledge sharing program. So during 5 years, we're at the beginning of the second year. It started in 2019, but during 5 years, we will provide learning opportunities, especially for small and medium organizations. At the beginning of the program, we conducted a needs assessment. So during that need assessment, we asked SMOs questions not only about their key learning priorities, but also about their preferred learning methods, knowing that SMOs have specific needs, but they also engage, they could engage differently. And some of the key takeaway maybe from that, and some of them were raised by Tara and Christine during their presentation, but one of the important things is about flexibility. Some SMOs are very small organizations, some are volunteer-based organizations, some have more staff, some have 2-1 staff. So we need to acknowledge that when we are designing capacity building opportunities. Also, they are not necessarily located in big cities as large organizations, so they are across the country. So we can't always organize our conference or learning opportunities in large cities. So we need to rotate and organize our activities in different province and region. We also want to acknowledge the diversity in terms, not only size, as I mentioned, but also in the different experience with donors. Some of them are GAC funded, some of them have different range of funding. So we need to also adapt to this reality. So during the few minutes I have, I just want to share with you a few learning opportunities and a few ways that SMOs could engage or benefit from the Spur program. If you look at the first column, build the capacity by attending learning opportunities. And because we want to acknowledge this diversity and be flexible, we are, of course, offering online webinars, but not only regular live webinars. For example, for our baseline study, we've decided to do what we call micro learning sessions, which is small. We break down a theme such as baseline survey, and then we record different sessions, and then we develop handout for each of these sessions. So organization can watch the videos whenever they want, whenever they can rewatch it, and then after sending this material, then people can attend a live session. So this is a format that was really useful when we did it, and we want to repeat. Something else that we want to do, and because we acknowledge that the capacity are different, as I said before, so we want to offer online course that are, for example, 101 online course and then 201 in-person course. So everyone could have the same basic understanding before joining an in-person training. We are organizing national training every year. So the first one that we were running was happening in March, and when we actually had to stop the first national training because of the COVID-19 outbreak. But we were about to organize 7 in-person training across the country on one of the themes that was identified as a key priority by SMOs in our needs assessment. And as Kristen mentioned before, a lot of the themes for these first learning opportunities were related to M&E, because a lot of SMO don't necessarily have a dedicated M&E person within their organization. So the first in-person training was about meaningful data collection, where people could learn about what is feminist M&E, how do you engage your community when you do mentoring and evaluation, what kind of technology are adapted for small and medium organizations. And every year we will have these national training in person. And then another way to benefit from the program is opportunities to network. This is something that we've heard in the needs assessment, that we need to create space for SMOs. So one of the space is the Youth Champion program. So we are running every year this program where we invite SMOs to nominate a youth. It could be a Canadian youth, or it could be a youth located outside of Canada. So this year we are running the first cohort. So we create a cohort with these youth and the SMOs, and we offer online training for 4 months. And then we invite all of them to gather gather in one location in Canada. So this is really a peer-to-peer opportunity to develop capacities altogether and to share experience. Another peer-to-peer learning opportunity is our annual conference. So once a year we have a conference which will be located in different part of Canada, so from west to east. So last year it was in Edmonton, this year it's supposed to be in Montreal. So this annual conference is usually in the fall. So we will see what happened with the conference this year because of the context. And we also have learning series that will start in a few months, which is different thematics that we want to break down into different webinars that we have once a month. And then we invite champions in this sector to share their learning about this specific theme. So I don't want to take too much time. I know that we are already a little bit behind, so I'm just going to wrap up very briefly about the public engagement activities that we are organizing, or we're supporting actually small and medium organizations to do public engagement. One of the ways to do that is to support one SMO a year to invite one of their partners to come to Canada and to do public engagement activities. We were supposed to have the first one 2 weeks ago. We were supposed to host human rights lawyers from Honduras, but unfortunately because of the situation we had to cancel our visit. We are also, as part of the Youth Champion program, supporting youth to do public engagement activities in partnership with their SMO partners. And finally, part of the program is also around global citizenship education, and we're engaging educators across Canada. For example, at the Spur annual conference, we're subsidizing both SMOs from across the country and teachers from across the country. So we create a space for both SMOs and educators to exchange knowledge and exchange their practices. So these are some of the activities that the Spur Change is running. So I know that today the objective was more to share the resources, but I also want to mention that tomorrow we are having a call with ICN, FIT, and Spur to provide an update on the program in the context of the pandemic, but also to discuss your need, because we need to do a mini needs assessment to better understand what our SMOs needs in the context, so we could better respond and support each other.
You could just go 2 slides back. I just have 30 seconds on OCIC's capacity building signature initiatives. I'm going to be very quick. And just to share, I have read some of the French and English comments in the chat box around some of the gendered aspects of COVID and other things like that. So just to say thank you for those questions. And in the breakouts, we'll be looking forward to follow up with you. But OCIC will be delivering, so there are many councils across the country, as some of you know. Many of you are already members of your councils. So we will be delivering and working. We are part of Spur, we are the ICN, and so we will be delivering some of those activities locally. And we already did for the ME and E one last month. It was great. It was a really amazing workshop. And OCIC has some GAC funded initiatives for capacity in building and learning as well, on top of our contributions, on top of our contributions to the Spur Change program. So you can see them here. We've got 2 communities of practice, a gender equality hub and a youth policy makers hub. They're vibrant and growing. We have 64 in our gender equality hub from all different sectors, most from our international cooperation sector, but also from education, research, the arts, public, and corporate social responsibility. So we're really excited. And actually one of the things that Gender Equality Hub is working on right now is to document and see what we want to do to contribute to these gendered aspects of the COVID response. And one of your comments here was, what are we doing about the increase in gender-based violence and things like that during COVID? So we also have a youth policymakers hub with 30 young policymakers, activists in there, with allies as well from different sectors supporting them, doing great things. Annual innovation labs. We did one during IDW on SDG number 4, education, and 8, decent work. And so that was a great pilot with Youth Challenge International and the University of Toronto. We'll be running a series of capacity building, learning, knowledge exchange activities. Now we're moving into purely webinar mode for the next little while due to COVID, but one of the next ones coming up, just as a plug, it's going to be a series of 5 1.5-hour webinars starting April 29th with Results Canada on various advocacy topics, and we're calling it Advocacy Bootcamp. So that's going to happen all throughout May. And we'll also be running future series on community-based research in partnership with the UNESCO Knowledge for Change Toronto Hub, which OCIC is a founding member of. So I will, with that, no further ado, I'm going to just, if you can just move it to the slide again with the workshop for tomorrow. And our next, there we go. And so then the slide before is how you can get in touch with FIT and Spur. Thank you so much, Andrienne and Christina and everybody else who's gone before me. Major thanks to CANWACH for making this space possible for us to share with you, and now really excited to have a more two-way conversation in the breakout groups.
What we would like to do is simply poll you guys, poll everybody here with respect to just understanding how your takeaways have been so far. It would be a really quick capture for us. So we encourage you to log on to, go on to Sli.do if you're not already there. A question that we have for you is just using 1 to 2 words after hearing a lot of this amazing information. How are you feeling? What is your biggest takeaway from this exchange? If you want to enter in some of that, that would be really great. Just a good test before we all head in very, very quickly to our chat room. It'd be great to see. Awesome. Okay, fantastic. So we're seeing a lot of collaboration. Please keep adding in your responses. Lots, yes, lots of great information. So just a note is that we are doing our best to capture as much of the discussion summary as part of an outcome document, hence why we have been linking a link there. If you want to share your contact information, it'd be a great way for us to share who has been here, how to connect with each other. We promise to provide you the recording and a summary of not only the discussion, but the resources mentioned. Yes, building, awesome. So we see a lot of great things around relationships, asking for help, coordinating with one another, partnering. Someone's impressed. That's great. Wonderful. Awesome. So building lots of capacity, which is pretty much, very much so our intention here today. So I'm glad we captured that. All right. So with that, this is really helpful for us. We felt like we had a really rich discussion, and now we want to allow you all to get into smaller breakout rooms. So hang in there. We will my amazing colleague Caitlin will actually organize you into breakout rooms, and the speakers have been spread apart across this breakout room. Please do add your voice into the breakout room. Speak up, share your experiences, as well as please continue to use Sli.do, where we will be relaying many of the questions we received on Sli.do, specifically even the gender question that Isabel referenced during that discussion there. So you should be seeing a prompt to join your breakout room. Thank you all for going on this journey with us today of interaction. And I do apologize if anybody was cut off near the end, but we do want to make sure you talk, but also you also get to go on with the rest of your day. Raul, I apologize, you had one point that you were sharing, particularly around creative ways to keep community channel lines open during this challenging time, whether that's WhatsApp, finding ways that have been beyond just the official channels that you have used before. So just wrapping up that point. And again, if you all want to stay connected and stay in touch, please, Caitlin, you could put the contact sheet link in the chat box once again. I think there were some really great discussions and people can connect with one another once again. So I want to take a moment to wrap up with what is next as part of this conversation. So as promised, CANWACH will do our very best to summarize what we heard in breakout rooms in the larger discussion. We will follow that with an outcome document. We will have that translated as well. This outcome document The entire intention of having your contact information is so that we can share whoever feels comfortable sharing their contact openly with others. So if that is you, please feel free to add your name. And again, if anything, you wanted to touch base on any types of questions or resources that came up, please do just feel free to email me. My email is right up there, as well as any of the other amazing speakers that we had with us today. So we promise to have a document to those who have registered on this webinar. So if your email is registered, you will receive this document. In this document, if you'd like to share your contact, then please let us know, as well as the presentation recording, in addition to a feedback form. So just let us know how we did today. We did try to play around with some interesting digital tools and interact a bit more than the average webinar. So we do hope that sat well with you, but regardless, we're always looking to improve. And I would want to point out that we have an upcoming webinar. I know everybody has multiple webinars to go to, but of course this one is around mental health at home and the workplace during COVID-19. CANWACH will be hosting webinar Wednesdays, doing our best to kind of have a space for members and partners to come together around Wednesdays. So that is April 8th at 1 p.m. and the details are in the Eventbrite that I believe Caitlin can also be sending into the chat. So thank you very, very much to everybody, all the incredible speakers, but I just want to give a special shout out to my team who has been behind the scenes and has been doing the most to try to coordinate all these efforts. So Erin, Caitlin, Aminata, and Celia, as well as Jessica, really thank you so much, and the incredible speakers for bringing their rich insights with us today. And to all of you, for taking time out of your precious day during a very challenging period as well to be with us here. If there's any questions, of course, please let us know, and we hope to see you on the next webinar.